Good fam, welcome back to another episode of the Licken Youth Podcast. I'm your host Kumbuzi Lamboqa, and today we're diving deep into something that's probably keeping half of you up at night: side hustles. You know that thing your cousin keeps talking about at family gatherings while counting cash from his latest venture? Well, that's what we're talking about today. Today we've got someone who does a bit of this and a bit of that. It's Mr. Zondi. This man just doesn't have one job. He's got a couple of side hustles. He's collected qualifications as well. Spumelele is a lecturer at Durban University of Technology and has a weekly slot on Ukhozi FM. He's the tech guy everyone calls when they want a bit of information about tech and a bit of contribution on their shows. Bro, do you ever sleep? Do you ever sleep? Do you ever rest?
You will sometimes find space there and there to rest, but yeah, you need to, like the economy we're living in nowadays, you need to always have stuff to do.
Okay, Spume, tell me, you're at DUT, a proper stable job. Well, proper, it's what people call proper. It's already a job that a lot of us dream about. What made you think, let me add more stress to my life, let me find something else to do on the side?
DUT actually came late, so I've always been in a life of slashes or side hustles, as you refer to them, because the media industry is structured in that way. So for a very long time I was freelancing in a loose sort of way because of a weekly television show and a weekly radio show, but it was all still freelancing as a writer, and then even lecturing itself started as a short-term gig where there was a contract that had a beginning and an ending.
Okay, so what would you say came first? TV, radio? What comes first to you?
I think because I've done TV longer, that tends to be close to my heart more than anything else. Radio appears more to be a side hustle. I love it too, but not as much as I love television and the writing as well, but only if and when I want to. I don't like the pressure of writing because it's forced creativity if it's on a daily basis.
I hear you. Now tell me, how do you balance everything? You know, I know listeners will think, I've got kids, I can't do this and that, or my job requires me to travel. How do you manage to balance everything and give your all to both your side hustle and your day-to-day job?
I think you need to find yourself in spaces where you can structure things in your own way, especially in a life of slashes. You must know that you mentioned kids, for example, so that's when you realize that they're in school, and that's when I push and I can decide which side or which hustle to focus on a particular day. You can't do everything at exactly the same time. So you need to have a proper schedule on whichever day that today this is my focus and that's what I'm going to be doing, and try to stick to deadlines, because especially with the media industry, it's a deadline-driven industry, and and you are as good as your reputation and whether you keep to deadlines or not.
All right. Tell us about your radio journey. Your gig on Ukhozi FM. I mean, Ukhozi FM is not a small radio station, it's quite an established radio station, especially in KZN or even across the country.
So the radio journey is, a lot of people don't realize how long it actually has been. It's where I started when I was 18 years old and a student of journalism. I saw an ad on campus. It was a short-term license station. I went there for auditions. They then told me, I remember my phone was stolen at rest on the day, so they had no way of calling me back. But luckily there were pay phones, so I called them from a pay phone to find out how my audition went, and they said I should stand right next to that payphone because they were still deliberating. So I was keeping everyone away.
You still had payphones, I can imagine.
So they called back and they're like, listen, we did not take you as a presenter, but we'd like to take you on as a producer. And then after that, I called a commercial radio station, that's Gagasi FM. And again, they were like, when I called, they're like, we don't need anybody. And my response was, you don't. Interestingly enough, I was at a campus radio station or not radio station, but campus online publication when I called.
Okay.
And I was
Wow.
like, you don't need anybody, you need me.
Oh wow, I love the confidence.
And they called me to come in 2 days later, and from not needing anybody, I guess they liked the energy over the phone. 2 days later, they're like, can you come through later today? I went through, chatted with them, started as their sports presenter later on that day. But eventually I gravitated towards tech, but that came from my academic studies. When I realized that tech is not documented in South Africa, because that's my interest, right? And as you say, for some strange reason, now I'm the go-to guy, because there's Ukozi, there's 702 once a week, there's Metro
I heard you on
FM,
Metro today. Yes.
there's Metro FM as well. So it's 3 radio stations on a weekly basis that I do tech on.
Okay. Earlier on, you spoke about reputation and your name being your brand. Can you elaborate slightly on that?
I think while it was not planned on my behalf that I was going to do this, and I was going to be what seems to be the go-to tech guy. I suppose as you meet people, as they engage you on your thoughts, as they watched the tech show that I did for 11 years for the SABC, and they realized that this is someone who would give us a lot of insight in tech. To the point, and I suppose because of I believe in research, and I think this is also the academic in me that comes up, because everything I do must be thoroughly researched. And when I engage on these topics on radio, they must be thoroughly researched. I remember Metro FM, I told them that I'm with 702 and Ukozi, and they were like, oh, okay, problems. They went away, they came back a week or two later, and they were like, actually, we've tried other people, can it be you? And I'm like, I'm still there, and they're like, no, but can it be you? And I suppose that is the reputation that speaks, because of the not really planning, but because of the work that you do, the quality of the work, and also the fact that they can trust that you will show up and do what they need you to do.
All right. So, let's talk money, and don't worry, we don't want to see your bank statements. Can you give listeners an idea of how side hustles can actually contribute to your overall income, and so not figures necessarily, but is it substantial? Is it something that really makes a huge difference?
Oh, they can, and you need to decide how you want the side hustle to do it for you. Sometimes what I've done in the past would be to travel the African continent, and when I'm traveling, I'd buy like African print material that I would bring home. Sometimes I would be thinking, one day I will make something out of this, and then I'm like, hold on, I'm not getting to the end of the month, and I'm like, I have African print material. I pull it out, and it almost always finishes quickly when it's there.
You've never showed me any.
Well, that's only if I've traveled to other parts of the African continent. So that's an example of when a side hustle, because if I then focus properly, for example, on maybe importing these materials and then selling them, that's when a side hustle could then assist in stretching to the end of the month, right? Or that's when, if maybe school fees need to be paid, the school fees could be paid by a side hustle as opposed to money that comes out of your pocket or out of your salary. And I suppose some people, if for example you have hobbies that you'd like to take care of, but you don't want the salary to be the one that's taking care of the hobbies, a side hustle could come in there as well. So the salary takes care of the important stuff, and then the side hustle assists there and there if you have hobbies and other things that you'd like to do, or maybe even chicken licken that you'd like to buy, as opposed to chicken licken coming out of the money that's in your pockets.
I'm glad you mentioned chicken licken. This is the soul station.
It helps a lot as well when, for example, you're burning the midnight oil and you have a couple of chicken licken wings that you can that can help you get through the work, right?
I want to hear, as Pume, for students, or young people who are still making it or trying to break into industry, whatever specific, could be corporates, whatever. How can they start a side hustle? I know some students I saw on TikTok, one is selling weaves, and she says she buys them at a Chinese shop somewhere and puts up her markup, and that's how she's been surviving. What can students, aside from stressing about assignments, how else can they make a side hustle?
I know the different points of view about this. There are people who say that hobbies need to remain hobbies for enjoyment, but especially when you're a student, you need to think about extra forms of income, and sometimes hobbies can be those extra forms of income. I'm thinking about someone who loves to bake, for example. As a lecturer, one of my students talks about baking. I've had other students who've loved baking, so you sell those scones that you would have baked and other things that you would have baked to other students, because they're always looking for cheap meals that they can have as well. Think about, for example, people who may not have time to wash their own shoes. So you could fill in that gap where you're washing their sneakers for them. And you make extra money through washing their sneakers for them. Maybe you have a printer and a machine at home, because you find that some students don't want to get to campus all the time, where the printers may be available. And this is something that if they need stuff printed because they need to put a poster up, they have a hip-hop session coming up, and you are the person that prints their stuff for them. And maybe as a hip hop session, you're a rapper, and there's a restaurant nearby, and organize with them that you have certain days of the week where you go and perform, and you make money through those methods. So look at what your hobby is and see how you can turn your hobby into extra cash.
Okay, I hear you. Now let's talk about the tech side hustle specifically. Everyone thinks you need to be the next Elon Musk to make it rich in tech. What can we do? How can you give us pointers to break into that industry? What do we need to know or try?
We live in tech. I made an example with, for example, sneakers. So I know a young lady who would refurbish sneakers, and in her refurbishment of sneakers, she would use online platforms to sell her sneakers. So that's her, without being a techie, utilizing tech platforms to sell what she was refurbishing. Or think about digital marketing as well, where a lot of people may be I spoke about designing posters earlier. There are various platforms nowadays that also help. Think about Canva, for example, and how that can also help in you designing stuff, and you've utilized a piece of technology to do that. Think about social media and how a lot of people live on social media as well. And students tend to somehow amass a huge following on social media, but maybe a student could be that person who decides that my platform will now be for digital marketing because I've amassed a huge following from the student community. There are various methods that can be utilized. Editing video, because some people may not be creative. So you're utilizing different technology platforms and your software that you have to edit videos for people who may need videos edited for them.
Okay. With being an entrepreneur or having side hustles, what specific mindset do you need to have? What's the mental shift that you think people need to make to be successful with side hustles?
The shift is that you will not always be waiting for someone to give you an opportunity. You open opportunities for yourself. And that's what side hustles are, because when I think about my journey, when I have visited a place, I remember when I was in Mozambique, for example, I called the Mail and Guardian and I said, listen, can I write a feature or a travel feature in Mozambique? And I did, and they paid me. And so I traveled and I made the money back because I sold that feature to them. So it's a mindset of everything that I do can be sold, and there is someone who's willing to buy everything that I do.
Interesting. Now tell me about SARS. You know, SARS is always chasing people. How can people now not formalize their side hustles, but make them legit so that we don't hear ourselves chasing you one day? Yeah. How do you structure, or what advice would you give?
It's always finite, because they believe me that, especially if it comes to your bank account, know that if you are let's say you are not taking cash for your scones, you are getting money through your bank account, they realize that there's continuous income that's coming through the bank account. So the best thing is to always be filing, keep receipts of everything that you do, of everything that you sell, because they'll want to know where the money comes from, what goes in and what goes out. And if you're utilizing stuff for work, they'll be understanding. For example, let's say as someone who's presented on TV, the suit is for work. So they understand that you are a freelancer, the business is you, and you were essentially buying goods that you need for work, and sometimes you can then get that money back in that particular manner when you are filing, because you were utilizing it for work.
Okay. So for someone who's listening right now thinking what to do, where to start, what's your advice?
Just start. That's because sometimes I think we fantasize too much and we're like, oh, when I start a business, I need to do this and that and the other. Just start. Just start selling those scones, but also keep the receipts. And sometimes, because there are people who say, I want to register first, and you find that there's already a complaint about that too many registered businesses that are not doing anything. So start, and then you realize that, oh, I have a market, then register the business, because eventually you do need to register and let the taxman know that you have a business that you are running. So just start.
And what about the fear factor? You know, you have what do they call it now? The imposter syndrome, where you can think of 101 reasons why it will fail and only one reason why it could work.
That's also the reason you need to just start, because unless you've started, you don't know that it will work or it could work. So this is why I say do not wait for a day you are brave enough to go and register the business. Just start and test the markets that way. And once you've started, then go register the business, because it's now a viable business. You don't know that people in your area are interested in amakwinya or not. You'll find out that they're interested in your fed cooks once you have started making them and then you have started selling them. So until the day you say, well, I am whatever fed cooks, then you don't know, because you might find that you registered, they're not interested. But if you just started, they would have found you along the way.
Yeah, that takes guts. Now tell me, how do you handle difficult clients? We all know that one client who wants champagne on a makewu budget. How do you handle that?
It's honestly, because clients also need to be honest with themselves as well. And if they can't afford champagne, then say that, listen, you can have something that looks good or as good, but it's cheaper. It may not have as much of a kick if it's a kick that you are looking for, but be honest with your clients, and clients must be honest with themselves and say, listen, there is something that's doable. It's not on the same level, but it looks good too. And we can do it on a lower budget.
Have you ever had to drop a client or walk away from a client who's not willing to budge, perhaps? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you also know what to put, because it's your name at the end of the day as well. Because and your name is your reputation. And if a client is not willing to budget, it's honesty as well. Just say, listen, I can see that in terms of creativity, we're not on the same wavelength. Because I believe that what you needs a bigger budget. I can't be as creative with what you want. With the budget that you are offering. Therefore, I can walk away. And so often people come back because they realize that what you are telling them is what everybody else will. And they came to you because they know what you can provide. And the fact that they will not be able to get it from other people.
All right. Tell me about social media and marketing yourself. Is it important to have an online presence, or would you say it depends on what you're hustling in?
I believe these days people need to find out that you exist, and social media is one way where they can find out that you exist. But also, what you then promise on social media must be what you can deliver. Don't overpromise on social media without the ability to deliver what you told people you can do.
Okay. Are you amazing failure? Amazing or biggest failure, or any amazing moment? Amazing failure.
I'm trying, because I'm trying to think, because I believe that we've all failed at something, but I believe that when failure is on its way. Sometimes I can sense it and I can re-divert. That's why maybe it's so difficult to figure out what that big failure would be. Because I think my mindset is a mindset of re-diverting or diverting to something else when I can sense that things are not going to go the direction that I would like.
Okay. Valuable lesson, I suppose, to circumvent any disappointments and failures. I hear you. Just to wrap up, what's your advice for maintaining a work-life balance when you're essentially working multiple jobs? So how do you rest? How do you take time out? How do you replenish?
Everybody needs rest. And to be honest, you need to tell yourself that now I am is time I will take away. And because you can't give the best of yourself if you're suffering from burnout. And yes, sometimes burnout comes, but you need to spot it and you need to say that for this day or two. And also be honest with your clients that I can't take this particular work right now. And maybe because sometimes I think that there are deadlines that are made up and can be pushed away. So be honest with your client and say, can I not give it to you in a day? Can I give it to you in 5 days instead? And you might find that there are clients who are willing. There are clients who will not be willing to shift dates because they came to you because they already are in a fix. But ask them to go to somebody else or recommend somebody that they can go to. Because if you then recommend somebody, they'll always remember you. Even if that person does a good job and they're like, let me stick with that person. But because you recommended somebody else, that person will always come back to you when they have a surplus too. Because you were the person who then said, I need to take time out, let me recommend someone else. And then you end up collaborating with other people in your space.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zondi. That was a refreshingly honest interview. Everyone, that was lecturer, radio presenter, event director, and side hustle inspiration, Spumelele Zondi. Spume, where can people connect with you if they want to learn more? Whether it's your socials or email?
Yes, social media is the best place. It's as Zondi on X, as Zondi _ on Instagram, Spumelele Z on TikTok. And also, if there's information you need or if you want to talk business, please just go straight with it. Hello will not get a response.
Perfect. And to our listeners, remember, your side hustle doesn't have to change the world. It just has to change your bank balance. As Pume said, start small, start today, and who knows, maybe you'll be our next guest sharing your success story. All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Soul Sessions Chicken Licken Youth Podcast. If this episode inspired you to start your side hustle journey, slide into our DMs and let us know. Up until next time, keep hustling, keep growing, and keep the chicken spirit alive. Soul Sessions.